Welcome to the Mindset Connection podcast. Thank you for joining us for our 21st episode. We are your hosts, Jennifer Clearwaters and Cindy O'Connell. And today we are so excited to be welcoming Myrna Bridges to our podcast. Thank you for coming. As you know, in every show, we are showcasing everyday people who are doing amazing things in the field of mental health and wellness. And Myrna is definitely that person. She is the Associate Warden at the Federal Bureau of Prisons in a medium security men's facility in New York State. So welcome. Thank you for taking time out from your job to be here. And we are so excited to talk to you.
Thank you. So just a little bit about her. I mean, her bio is extensive, but and also very impressive. So she's worked at BOP for the past 15 years. She began her career at a women's facility as a drug treatment specialist and has since held several positions of increasing responsibility, including Reentry Affairs Coordinator, Unit Manager, Executive Assistant, Associate Warden, and Program and Policy Coordinator. I said to Myrna earlier, when did you start this? At 15 years old?
Exactly.
I mean, it's like just incredible. Before joining, Myrna held various positions in the private and nonprofit sectors, working with diverse populations. Her roles included case manager, program director, assistant executive director, and more. She earned both her bachelor's and master's degrees in criminal justice from SUNY, Albany, and later a master's degree in social work from Fordham. She has drawn on her education and experience to serve as an adjunct professor at 2 colleges and has facilitated employee training sessions and conferences. Most recently, she's worked at a nonprofit agency counseling survivors of sexual assault, where she provided trauma-informed counseling. In her spare time, she enjoys cooking, hiking, traveling. She proudly calls herself a gym rat because physical fitness is a priority. We
Absolutely.
love that.
We love that.
So, and she loves to try new activities and embrace new experiences. So I actually met Myrna and her partner at St. Lucia at a resort. Of course, we were in the fitness studio. They walked in. They asked me if the class had started. I said, I'm not the instructor. And then it just all started from there. So thank you for traveling to the Jersey Shore and being our guest here today.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Yes. So Myrna, we were talking before we started recording that you are a social worker, you know, and we wouldn't necessarily think that a social worker could be doing all of the jobs with the titles that you have. So maybe you can let our listeners and our viewers know, how did you get to where you are now with the degree that you have?
Yes, it's very interesting. And it sounds cliche, but it's like, even when I was younger, I wanted to be a child psychiatrist. I had no idea how to spell the word. Then I found out you had to go to medical school. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And so believe it or not, it's like I wanted to do FBI, missing and exploited children. And it was more so, how do I get there, right? Because I was too young at the time. So I figured, well, if I work not for profit, if I work in a group home, then that will be very helpful. I always knew I wanted to help people. I always knew I wanted to help kids specifically. At least at the time, I know that shifted a bit, but it's amazing where it takes you. So it kind of started there. But my very first job was like an internship working at a group home. And I just thought, I know what these kids need. I know what they want. I know how to talk to them. And I was so wrong. So
we think we know.
We think we know.
And
And the more I went to school, the more I got educated, the more I realized is that's not what this work is about. It's not about what you think you know. So it's so I had to, humble myself a little bit and say, no, I need to listen more. And I kind of just started realizing, again, it was just opportunities. People did not want to give me a chance because you have to have experience or you have to have this degree. And it was just like, the more opportunities I got, I just took advantage of it. The more training I could get, I just took training. I took classes. I did everything that I needed to do.
You were willing to do the work.
I was willing to do
Hard
the work.
work.
Hard work.
How did you make the transition into like going from the group home? Like when was the actual shift where you said, okay, I'm going to go work in a correctional facility, which can be, daunting and scary for most people. How did you do that and jump in and say, okay, I'm going to even try this, and then let alone go, I think I found my niche?
Yeah, well, that there was some populations I wanted to stay away from, and prison was one of them, believe it or not. It really
We're running
was.
away from where we
running
end up.
away, running away. And how I ended up there was I was working for a program in New York, and it was like a program where they had family support workers. They did kind of work inside the home, parent-child bonding. And then 9/11 happened. And so a lot of funding kind of got cut. And so did my funding. My hours got cut. And so I started looking at, well, where can I get a job? And prison was one of them. And it was actually in the state prison first. I saw a position for a drug treatment. It was called the ASAT correctional counselor. And it was drug treatment. And at that time, I had drug treatment experience, because in between all of that, I did work with many different populations, including substance abuse, including mental health. And so I was like, oh, I could do that. I'll do it for a little bit. Funding will come back. I'll go back to the not-for-profit world. And I ended up working as doing drug treatment with sex offenders. And I loved it. Believe it or not, it was one of the best jobs I ever had, because I worked with the victims for so long. I got to see the other side, and the circle became clear to me of how this all happened.
Okay, so now you have to tell us, how does it all happen?
It's a cycle.
It is. It's a cycle. It really is. Understanding the victim's perspective, and of course, it's like, well, how could someone do something like that?
Exactly.
Then you meet the perpetrators, and you're like, this is how it happens, and you start to see their history, and when they tell their story, and helping them to kind of get to the point of understanding how they started grooming. And the other piece of it is, I didn't work with a lot of pedophiles, but people think sex offenders, pedophiles. It was really not a lot of pedophiles in that particular program. However, it was still, one of the things that they had to do is tell their whole story. And although it was stressful to hear it, and of course you're like, okay, I got to protect everyone I know. Like I said, the picture became clearer.
Yeah.
Of how someone could become a victim.
Yeah, the only time probably that those people got a chance to share their whole story.
Exactly. And have someone
actually listen and say, I'm here to help you the best way that I can.
And help connect the dots. And I'm not saying I'm going to heal. Absolutely not. It's helping them connect the dots.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating.
Powerful work.
And I love that you just said that. Like, you weren't there to heal them. You were there to help them connect the dots on their journey of recovery. You're not there to fix it all.
Exactly. No. And then I ended up in the federal system, because then the state started looking at, well, we need to start closing some prisons.
Of course.
And it was, well, maybe I might get shipped somewhere. And someone said, hey, did you ever try the feds? And I saw a drug treatment specialist, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the federal system. And there I am. I never thought that I would last this long. After 5 years, I was like, I'm getting out. And then I was like, no, I actually kind of like this.
Obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, it shows from, just your whole demeanor that you're, a very content, peaceful person.
Yes, which is the energy we need.
Exactly. That's what I noticed about you when I first met you, is you're so calm.
Yeah.
So.
You have to be.
Yeah.
You have to be.
Oh, you have to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Calm and alert.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So I think people are still thinking, how is a woman, a social worker, working in a men's facility? So maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
When I worked in the state, I also worked with men. And then when I went to the feds, it was with women. So I've always worked with either juvenile males or, but I will say many people that I work with in the Bureau of Prisons, they don't even realize I'm a social worker. To be quite honest, it's not one of those things that I talk about a lot. I don't have like my degrees up, of course, you kind of keep things private a little bit, just because of the nature of our job. I think maybe some can tell just because of my demeanor or how I move or, communicate. But for the most part, I don't really talk about it unless it comes up. And then
do people ask you?
Sometimes they ask,
because you probably are a little different than other people.
Yeah.
They probably can tell, like,
like, why is she so calm?
Yeah, why are you so calm? Like,
and your approach is
different.
different.
And my approach is different. Exactly. So, but I will say during recruitment, I do talk about it, because one of the things is, there's so many opportunities in the system, and sometimes we just focus on one type of work, right? And don't think, well, yeah, I could go work in a prison, and what would that look like, and so I think it comes up more when I'm talking to people and honestly we're trying to recruit them than than it does when I'm at work. But I think it helps, being a social worker, obviously, not just with the inmates, but also with the employees, honestly.
Oh,
'Cause
Yeah.
that's
totally.
a
Well, when
majority
you
of
are
my
trying
work.
to
Yeah.
recruit and your people are saying, well, like, what does it look like? Like, I'm sure people
Hmm.
actually ask you, like,
Yeah.
what does it look like for your job? Like, what,
Hmm.
why should I come and do what you're doing?
Yeah, and it's well, it depends on the position, right? And so there are some prisons that you can be an actual social worker and you work for the medical department and you
Mm-hmm.
do actual social work. Or you can come in like I did as a drug treatment specialist and you can do drug treatment. You could come in as a case manager and do case management, So it really depends on what your focus and goals are, And then you can also go at one point, I worked in DC and did more, administrative type policy work. So because social work is so broad, we do have psychologists who do clinical psychology, but social work is so broad. And you can do so many different things, in different areas. So, as an associate warden, a lot of my job is working with employees. I mean, I oversee many departments.
Mm-hmm.
So, I supervise a lot of, individuals.
Right.
So, you kind of use those skills in supervising. But the biggest piece, because I'm one of those who like to walk around and talk and, be hands on, is I still talk to the inmates. I still get them to think about their thinking errors and, what they can do to change. And I challenge them. And, I think you need that. You need someone who can come in and just be calm while doing it, I guess.
Yeah.
At least that's what I'm told.
And I think that too, your approach is more genuine and human. You're
Hmm.
seeing uh, the people there as people.
Right.
It's not just
Correct.
you're a prisoner,
Hmm.
or I'm not sure what you actually refer to them as inmates.
Inmates.
So inmates.
Hmm.
So, but you're seeing them as people because every single thing that you've said tells me that you're seeing them just like you're seeing Jen and I.
Yep.
Oh, absolutely. And
Yep.
and I think I came in the Bureau of Prisons late and I'm lucky that I did because I can't say that if I came in earlier in my career, I would have been saying that. I got to see what happens when people come home and I got to see the effect that it has on the kids and the family and the community. And so how we treat them inside will determine their success outside and determine the next generation. So I think part of that is because of that. And that's what I try to get across to everyone that I speak to and to them. The decisions that you make when you leave here is going to matter, especially for your kids and your family and the neighborhood. And, so.
So what do you think they need? It's interesting. I just listened to a podcast yesterday where the two women were actually talking about how can they rewrite the rules of recovery. It was a podcast based on drug treatment in prisons, and they were talking about how do we do better. So for you, in your scope, and you said that you oversee many departments, of course, because you can't just have one.
No.
Have many. So you're seeing people with all kinds of challenges, all across even and also I know in supervising the adults, like the adults and the employees come with issues too. That's it's just, that's just part of the job. So how are you handling all of the challenges that go on? Like, what are you seeing as something that is an area that needs to definitely be addressed?
I would say it starts with giving the resources to the staff.
Yeah.
Without the people who do the work, the work will not be done. Yes, we get volunteers to come in and it's great. They have the compassion to volunteer for free.
And the time.
But the reality is it's the people every day who walk in there who do the work. And they need the resources, not just the staffing. Of course, we could increase the numbers and we can have one staff member for every 5 inmates. That's not going to make a difference. You have to give them the resources because it is very traumatic to work in that type of environment. So I think part of it is just recognizing the stress that they go through, the challenges that they face, and making sure that they have the resources to manage that. And like you mentioned, the baggage that they come in with. We have veterans who work there and they have, challenges as well. just from their own trauma. So to see some of the things that you see every single day, it is rough. So you need the resources, because if we're healthy, then we're going to be able to do healthy work.
That's right.
And that's what it kind of boils down to. So
do you think that there are enough resources?
There's never enough
There's never
resources.
enough.
And what when you say resources, what do you mean?
What do we,
Give us an
like,
example.
What
of a
can we
resource.
do? Like, what does the staff need that they can actually access?
Well, one of the things that is now implemented is we have a wellness policy where we do talk to staff now more about when they do see something traumatic, giving them, if they need time off or counseling or EAP, that's
really
always
good.
available,
Wonderful.
right? But I think there's also more about just training and education, and the fact that, we can't make them accept that, that they are going to have some trauma working in this environment. But I think talking more about the fact that when you retire, the average lifespan for law enforcement is 3 years. And it's because of the stress of the job.
Stress.
And so that's what I'm referring to, is more outlets of how to manage the stress, more education about that. When you have individuals who are seeing trauma and experiencing it, and then you have individuals, a population that have childhood trauma and other trauma, and now you're expecting them to communicate effectively, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is just communication. A lot of it is training. If a police officer fire their gun, they have to go to counseling first. Well, maybe there's some of that's needed too when they see something very traumatic before they can come back.
Yeah.
To really, push the issue of, you need to take care of you first.
Of course, because everything starts with you
It
first.
starts, yeah.
Self-awareness.
Exactly.
Self-awareness. What do they do for the inmates as far as the same type of thing, training and resources?
Well, there are plenty of programs available. Whether they accept those programs,
Right.
of course you can't make it.
Yeah.
And we do not make them, so there are plenty of, GED programming, VT programming, there's CBT and trauma programming. There's even, spiritual programming, so there are programming and jobs available to kind of keep them busy. Also training so that they learn how to manage, how to communicate, how to work through their own childhood trauma and things that they may be experiencing. Of course, again, we need more programming, right?
Yes.
But we can have a million programs, but it's how do you motivate, individuals to take those programs and realize that they need a change, and it takes a lot of patience. So of course we can increase programming, but they have opportunities there, and we do. And they do take advantage, I would say, a majority.
So
of
how does that work? Or is there people that are already employed
them.
that are actually doing all the training, or do you have people come in and do training? And like you said, you had volunteers.
We do have volunteers, but a majority of the individuals actually are employed for the Bureau. So we have psychologists, we have treatment specialists, we have priests, we have rabbis, we have imams, so we have many individuals who are employed, and they provide those programming. And then of course we also recruit to try to get volunteers to bring them in, because we don't have enough that can give many of the programming, because it's never enough, right? So that's why we also have the volunteers who can come in, and we try to get them to come in maybe even in the evenings when, the programming staff aren't there. So that way they also have things to do in the evening. But it's also recreation programming as well. I mean, just something as simple as taking a spinning class, or, or yoga or something. It's like, you wouldn't think that, right? But physical activity is important. So we have a huge recreation program, and we have specialists who are there for that, and we teach them how to be personal trainers, so we also give it back in that sense too. So there are plenty of opportunities, and we have staffing who do that.
Wow.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So is what is your day like? You come in at 8 o'clock, do you or do you like have to shifting work, or I'm just curious about.
It
Well, we
varies.
always talk here from other areas of in the industry that shift working is terrible for your body.
Right. Your body, your sleep, everything.
It is. And the officers definitely shift work as we talk about, really taking care of staffing. Shift work is tough. For myself, I'm considered executive staff. So for the most part, I would say it's 7:30 to 4, except it's not 7:30 to 4.
It sounds like it is.
It sounds like it, but it's really not. I come in early and, sometimes I'm there late. It really varies. There are no 8-hour days.
Right.
So really it's about, my typical day. There is no typical day because it changes. And I think that's what I also love about it because it changes. It's never the same. So, overseeing departments, making sure that they're okay. So it always starts with making sure staff is okay. I do a lot of rounds on the units and talk to the inmates, and that's a majority of my work, honestly, is listening, helping to problem solve, and communicating.
We're all
social worker.
Social
what
work
a surprise.
skills.
Exactly.
I think that's in the description of social workers.
That's in the description.
Listen, communicate.
Listen and helping. There's some decisions you have to say, okay, this is the decision, right? Yeah. And then there's some, it's like, well, what do you think? How would that look?
Right.
Or what would be the consequences? So but it's a lot of it is just honestly communicating.
Yeah, but you're also you're taking in so much information, and I know that we were talking before. Like I worked in the medical unit in a correctional facility, and it was definitely one of the most interesting jobs I've had. Profoundly sad and also like comical at the same time, and I learned so much being there. But you see a lot of stuff. So how, we always ask our mental health people, how do you take care of yourself? Because you are being a good listener and you're taking in so much information from so much pain and sadness, I would imagine, lots of times from speaking to the inmates and even the staff of what they see and what they've been through. So how do you take care of you?
Humor. You gotta laugh.
You have to laugh.
You have to laugh.
Yes.
But honestly, as mentioned, I love to hike, and I like to hike alone. Sometimes with folks, but I honestly like to hike alone because I like the peace. And then working
connection
out
to nature.
Yes. And working out helps quite a bit.
Yes.
Sports is big, and trying new activities, traveling, of course, but just trying new things is just important to me, not just for wellness, in my opinion, to take care of me, but also for brain development. You have to keep learning.
Do hard things.
I
guess. Yes.
So you got to challenge yourself. So whenever I see something that it's like, I could do that. I'll try it. And if I like it, great. And if I don't, well, I tried it, So just honestly being open to new things, I think is really the major piece of how I take care of me.
Yeah, and having a beginner's mind.
Yeah.
So important.
Yeah.
So what's next? What's the next new thing?
Well, I've been looking at this for a while and I haven't jumped the gun yet. It is learning how to make knives. So I know that sounds weird.
Oh, okay. How did you get into that?
Yeah. So I've always liked, like karate movies, things like that. But I've always had a fascination of people who can like blacksmith. And so then a show came out, Forge and Fire, right? And I kind of got hooked on it. And I was like, I want to try that. I want to learn how to like make blades and learn about metal and how to weld. And so it was just one of those things where I'm like, I'm going to try it. I'm going to take a class and I'm going to learn how to
where
do
do
that.
you even find it?
Yeah,
where
like that's like, not
yes,
a typical class.
It's not. You can Google. Google is amazing.
Yes. But again, when you think about it, that is an industry, and there are people who do this for a job.
Yes,
right.
And they will teach you. And so that's kind of how.
All right, tell us, where are you going to take this class?
I haven't found it yet because moving back to New York, but when I was in Virginia, it was like, okay, I found some places and my son actually gave me money so I could go do it. Like, go do it, as a Christmas present once. So now it's just finding it here.
Yep.
And so looking, and I started to look. I haven't quite figured it out yet, where exactly, but it's coming.
We're going to check in with you.
Yeah.
You made any knives this week?
What is your first one? And I just find it fascinating.
Well, it's learning a new skill.
Yeah,
it's really good.
Exactly. You never know when it may come in handy.
That's
Who knows?
right. Yeah, you never know.
Well, when you tell us that you're like throwing knives, as a part of that. No, just the making.
Maybe
of
not.
knives.
Just making. Yeah.
Okay.
For now, we'll see.
So, what do you think is when you assess the prison system as a whole, because you've been in a number of different places, what do you think it needs more of? There's always something more, but like you've been in so many different areas. Is there one, main thing where you can say like, hey, this is an area that really needs improvement? Or enhancement.
More enhancement or improvement would be, more treatment. More trauma-informed, communication and more trauma-informed care, honestly. And we do have that. I think we need more of it. We have... Is
that an option also, or is that more of a mandated treatment for inmates? Like they have to talk with someone or they don't?
They don't. It honestly depends on their care level to determine how often they need to talk to individuals. But, we have a high mental health population. We have a high substance abuse population, no surprise, right? And so more treatment, honestly, is what's needed.
So let's think about it from the other side. So now, you've worked with youth before too. You said that was your first. Yeah.
Yes.
So what are we missing in schools to prevent, people from committing crimes that they have to go to prison?
That is a fascinating question.
It's a magic question.
It is.
Any mental health professional is going, what can we do? Right?
Yeah.
What can we do to stop
do?
it from happening?
But it's a true question.
It is.
It is.
Yeah, like what are we doing on this end? Like we always want to look at prevention, right?
Yeah.
So
we can't prevent childhood trauma in everyone's
No.
home.
No.
Because that's what's a lot of it is stemming from that.
Right.
Agreed.
Or perhaps substance abuse in the home, which children are exposed to. But Cindy and I being school people, we're always saying like, what can we do in the schools that might help? And sometimes it will help and sometimes it won't.
Right. And I wish I had a magic formula.
We all do.
Right? There are definitely risk factors, right? I think in my opinion is putting aside some of those risk factors and realizing that all kids need, some support in some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely.
It's difficult because you can have someone who's never been in trouble all their life and then something happened in their adult life and they commit a crime. They make that decision, right? That split decision, because that's what it's all about is decisions, right? That split decision that, this is the only way out, and they get caught and now they're in prison. So I don't know if there is, I know that's not the answer, right? I don't know if there's a specific answer, I think it's tough in schools. I think there's also resource issues in schools as well.
100%.
And I also, just feel like we don't, when I see, a 16-year-old that couldn't finish even the 8th grade, and I say to him, and I've said this, we didn't meet your needs. We didn't. This is not your fault. We didn't meet your needs. And that's what it is. I mean, like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And that's where it all starts. It all goes back to schools and now, and the funding for schools.
I agree. And I think learning styles, right?
Yes.
As you talk about that,
right?
We can't have a one size fit all because everyone learned different. And it's not until we see a behavior that we decide, oh, that kid may need to learn different. And then we give them an IEP and then we want to do this and then we want to give all these interventions. And it's like, well, maybe in the beginning, if we realize, from preschool and from kindergarten, the different learning styles, and then how do we adapt to that? How do we make sure the teachers have the resources to adapt to every kid's learning style, right?
Or not waiting, because, often I know this from working in
true.
schools is that, the teachers will identify an issue right away, and then we have to do the INRS, and then we have to try this, and we have to try this, or they're not exactly failing, but the teacher is saying like, hey, I see a disconnect here, but we have to wait until they're actually failing, and then we will do something. So oftentimes I hear from the teachers, and we know this from working in schools too, and in guidance. You might notice an issue in September, and it's only you're getting around to May or June when you're actually implementing something, and that child's lost the whole year.
Yes. Yeah.
And then
that's
what?
when the problem starts.
And now we have a whole year loss of learning, and sometimes it can't be corrected.
Yeah.
Correct.
You know, and I still remember like I was a high school guidance counselor with a senior who was graduating from high school and identified that he couldn't read. Like, how did that happen?
He
didn't, and he didn't just come here.
Yeah.
You know,
he went through the whole system.
He went through the whole system and got passed along every single year until someone actually identified that he was illiterate and was going to graduate. Like, how does that happen? You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it does happen.
It does.
It does happen. So I think that's we're all wondering what the magic solution would be, because I think there's definitely more that needs to be done, and
yeah, and there are gaps.
Yeah,
obviously, and parents sometimes, you know, and I know as a parent I had to fill in some gaps, you know, and that's not easy, especially as a working parent. You know, it takes a lot,
and parents do have to fill in gaps, and I know that parents would say to me, "Well, he's your problem while he's in school," and you know, no, we're working together so that your child can be successful. So every child can be successful. But so what's a takeaway you have for our listeners? We
want everybody to know.
Yes, the takeaway. Well, prison is not what you see on TV.
That's I love that you say that, because there's all these prison shows on. Yes.
Yeah. You know, and if
how
it was,
how is it not?
You know, and if it was, I wouldn't be there. So it's like, you know, because they show the rough and the bad and the compromised staff and the violence, and you know, and it's like that is not 90% of it, you know, and maybe even 99% of it, you know. So there are some really dedicated people who work in the prison system and who truly care and who want to keep people safe and who want to keep the community safe. And so the takeaway is that, you know, there are some dedicated individuals there who are committed, and who want to and who have been doing the right thing, right? And who want to help, you know, not just the inmates, but help each other. So I would say the takeaway is that it's to educate, maybe, you know, and learn more about what it is. And do we need changes? Of course, there's changes in every system. But understand that there are people who work there every day, and it is, you know, not an easy job. And, you know, being more understanding of, you know, who they are and what they're exposed to and what they hear and what they see, and how they need to process it. And so just being more aware.
It's a hard job.
As you're talking, I'm thinking, Myrna, this looks like a documentary to me. Just a few episodes. The real prison story. You know, whatever you want to call it. But honestly, I think you're right. I think it's, you know, people have a misconception. So
So how are you balancing all your time? Because, you know, you have a partner and grandchildren and children and this crazy job that you love. So how do you make it all work?
You know, and what's interesting is I haven't done it since I've been back here in New York, but, you know, I would always do something outside of work. And I know it's weird because I was doing trauma treatment, right? It's like, well, you're already
doing that.
And now you're doing like sexual trauma treatment. But it was like, it just kept me, you know, humble and reminded of, you know, the individuals who are victimized, you know, because you can easily lose the sight of the victims, right? And so that kind of helped me with the balance. And then when I feel like it's becoming too much, I take a break, which is what I'm doing now. Take a break. And then I'll do something completely different. And when I say completely different, it's like, well, you know, now I'm playing pickleball and
and learning how to make knives.
And we'll learn how to make knives and you know, taking my grandkids hiking and exposing them to that, you know. So I think that's the balance. The balance
to detach.
Is to detach and realize when I'm at work, I'm at work. And in my position, you know, I do get phone calls outside of, you know, but that's part of the job. And I've accepted that. And I think just realizing that I'm not going to change anyone. That is not my goal. I'm not gonna, it's just there to support, honestly.
That's
So
good.
that's how I
that's great.
balance
Yeah,
all of this,
definitely.
is just understanding
Yeah.
and being realistic about my role
Mhm.
and reminding myself every day what that is.
That's great.
Yes. Ah,
It's really good.
honestly,
Yeah.
Myrna, I'm going to say this. I just can't help it. You're one of these people that are angels on earth, and that is the truth. No, I'm serious. Like everything you're saying, I can't wait for people to hear this episode because they need to see the other side.
Yeah.
It's just
Or,
like you did not complain one time,
right.
and that is truly a gift.
And you're in
to-
a really hard institution
Yes.
to work with, and you're very grateful and happy
Yeah.
about the work that you're doing,
and
even
really-
when you may not be solving a problem.
right, and you understand what your role
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's really good. And you're helping in some way. You're trying to help in some way.
Yeah,
And you're going to reach some people, and there's going to be people that you're not going to
Right.
reach.
exactly.
Mhm.
For a lot of mental health people, that's a failure in our eyes. Sometimes you may
Mhm.
feel like that because you want to save everybody, and you
Right.
can't.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Agreed.
these are our final questions. We ask
Okay.
everybody, how do you view failure?
As a learning experience.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course.
And what are your 3 most important strengths? Don't overthink it. First 3 that come up.
Oh my gosh.
You have so many. We
Yes.
know.
No, not at all.
No. See,
Oh,
and that's what
that's
everybody
good.
says. So when Jen and I taught
Oh, no.
graduate school,
Mhm.
I would always ask that for
Mhm.
counseling interns so before they go out. I said, they're going to ask you this in an interview.
Yeah.
You
Mhm.
better know what your strengths are. Well, can I tell you about my weaknesses?
Yeah. No.
No.
No. But if you don't overthink them, what makes you you?
I would say listening.
Mhm.
I believe I'm an active listener. Let's see. My temperament is a strength. It helps. And being open-minded, just being open to learning and being open to other ideas. And I think that's
See,
pretty
that
much
wasn't
it.
so hard.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah. You could have come up with a
You
few
could've
more
come up with
very
more.
easily.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't know.
So I think you've kind of touched on this throughout the episode, but what's going well in your life?
I would say everything. Honestly, it's I can't complain, I truly can't.
We know.
Yeah, you haven't.
I'm just grateful,
You
so
are.
it's one of those things where what's going well, work is going well because it could be so much worse, and family and outside of work is going well because it could be so much worse, and my health could be so much worse. So honestly, I'm just grateful. So everything,
Yeah.
is going well because
That's the wonderful
Yeah.
answer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your energy, what you bring in, like people get a sense your energy is
Yeah.
right away. I mean, when I met you, I was like, oh yeah, this woman.
And if you're listening,
She's
you
the
can
real
probably
deal.
hear it. But if you're watching on YouTube, you can see like,
Yeah.
there's a calmness.
Mhm.
So it's almost like
Mhm.
you are doing the work that you're meant to do in the right space
Exactly.
Mm.
with people who need it, because we know that working in a correctional facility, it's high stress for the inmates too.
Mhm.
They're on guard all the time, as are the employees. So
Yeah.
it's nice to see someone to come in with just like people can just take a breath and just relax a little around you.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
goal.
Yeah. So
That's the goal.
Jen and I wrote a book, The Elevation Principles,
Yeah.
and in that book we talk about how to change. So is there something in your life that you would like to change? It's a yes or no.
Okay, good.
That's all. It's a yes or
You
no.
don't have to tell us.
You don't have to tell us what
Yes.
it is. Okay.
All right. So what is holding you back?
Me,
All right.
honestly.
So what's one thing
Mm-hmm.
that you can do to move forward?
Wow.
To take that first step.
Yeah.
To take the first step. I would say just do it, but it's one specific step.
You could say just do it. You can
Yeah,
say
But
that.
if you have a
That's
specific
fine.
step, do you have something specific that you'd want to actually do?
Honestly, it's just get up and do it.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
it's
and that's something
Well,
that
no,
Jen
get
and I
out of, you just have to get out of your head.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm. So many
So-
people
Mhm.
tell us that what holds them back is themselves.
Mhm.
Exactly.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
So
There's no
so,
excuse.
mhm.
Yeah, there is no excuse. Yeah,
No,
for
there
sure.
really isn't one.
All right. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah. So, is there anything else that we didn't get to ask you that you wanted to share with our listeners?
No, honestly, I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
You will later. You're
You
going to
know?
drive away and go,
Oh,
wait a
yeah,
minute. I should have
exactly.
said that.
Yeah.
Always,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but no, I would just honestly just, be patient.
And if somebody had, if we just say we
Yeah.
have a social worker or someone who's in that type of area that's going, like, I bet I could do what she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought about that, but maybe this kind of work would be right for me.
Mm-hmm.
How do you even find a job in the correctional facility? Like, how do you do it?
Yeah. Well, I know for the federal system, it would be usajobs.gov.
Okay, that's good to know.
Okay.
Yes. And so, we have institutions across the United States. So honestly, it's all about where you want to be. And, you just, I can't say that it's the easiest system to navigate as far as USA jobs, but it's not that difficult. You put in the Bureau of Prisons and you see the jobs that's available, and it takes a lot of patience. It is a process, but you have to be open, especially as a social worker. If you're looking just for social work jobs, you're going to end up at specific institutions that have those jobs.
Yep.
And they do have definitely, those type of jobs, but the skills, that a social worker would bring to the table is universal. So again, being a case manager, being a drug treatment specialist, or I don't know, even some nurses or social workers, just coming in and understanding that there are many options.
Is there any specific, now you told us just before, I know we're running out of time, but you
Mhm.
said you were always taking trainings, anytime you
Yes.
could take something, what would
Mhm.
be, are there any specific trainings that just kind of come to mind when you're thinking, okay, if someone were looking to get into the field of what you were doing and they have the degree, but maybe what's a training that would be helpful for them to take or look for?
Yeah. Well, the National Institute of Corrections, they or NIC, or if you type it in, it'll come up, and you can join, and they have free trainings. And
That's good to know.
The free trainings are, and a lot of it is correctional based.
Okay.
So, understanding, whether it's communication or, trainings just about how the system works, they have so many free trainings. And if you're working in another, like in a not-for-profit or private or what have you, and you can do paid trainings as well there at the facility, and when I mean facility, I mean at NIC in Colorado. But, I do a lot of their trainings. They have some really great trainings, and it, like I said, it's free of charge.
So over
you just
Zoom,
join.
they have them too. I'm assuming.
And some of it is just it's
self-directed.
Okay. That's
Some
good
of
to
it is
know.
virtual.
Yeah.
Some of it is in person. Some of it
Wow.
is a combination of two. And I mean, there's everything from leadership to, just even how to even set yourself up to become that associate warden or warden.
Wow.
So there is so much training there.
That's a really good
And-
resource.
Yeah.
And they do training for
Definitely.
federal, state, county. I mean, all corrections. So
Okay. That's good to know.
that is, if they're interested, that's the first place I would go, just to see if it's something that I could do.
Yeah, exactly. That's
great.
resource.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Well,
All right, well,
thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing your time today and coming here. And, for those of you who don't know, Myrna drove down here yesterday to make sure she was here
On
on
time.
time for our podcast. So thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
We can't wait for everyone to hear this episode. And just a reminder, if you like what you see and hear, please make sure to follow us. We haven't been saying that, but we're saying it now. Please follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple or on YouTube. And we will be back with another episode showcasing another person doing amazing things in mental health and wellness. So thank you very much for joining us.
All right.
And Cindy has to say her last few
Yes.
words.
So remember to do hard things, and remember to pause, breathe, and then respond. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Myrna, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
We
I
really
appreciate it.
enjoyed it.